Okay, linen closet. So I got a little progress done just so it'd be easier to kind of describe what the steps are in this video. And where we stand now is I'm scribing the shelves into place. But just to back up a little bit, first step, the door was installed. I did the interior casing here all the way around, and then baseboard down at the bottom. Next up was the cleats that were gonna hold each shelf. Typically in a really nice finished closet, I would like to end these cleats here, maybe put a 35 degree angle, cut on the front, give it a nice finish. But the way that the studs were lined up, as well as with the depth of the shelf that I wanted, the strongest way to make these was to screw into the front stud behind this corner and the back stud there. So I ended up doing full length cleats on the sides. This means cutting is a little more tricky because you got to bang them in there snug, but it was easier to get them in there and get some nice grab with these nails. I knew there was a stud here on the right side of this switch, light switch, but on this side, there was nothing behind this wall other than one stud and one stud. Timber frame house, so a lot of these walls have limited studs for installing things like this. Anyway, ripping down just 1x4 stock to 1.25 inches, cutting them to length, and I PL'd the sides and then finish nailed them in place. I started 2 feet off the ground with the bottom and then 1 foot up from there. This one I nudged a little higher because the switch was in the way. And just using a 2-foot level, I drew a level line across the back to get that one in place. And then for the sides, I would use my smaller level to kind of fudge the cleat up or down and then nail it into place. Next step was the shelves, and I don't know if you can tell well in this video, but the wall here and there are not parallel. So it's kind of got like a angle on the sides, and I want that to be really snug or it's not going to look nice. So I know that the back is going to be longer than the front. So I measure this distance from corner to corner. It's about 26.25 inches. But the shelf won't fit in place. Like up here, I have it. I measured 26.25 and cut it, but it's too wide. I need to scribe the front and take material off, and you can see there's a gap in the back. And that is done with my basic, old school compass scribes. And I basically just set it like this, get the tip to where it's just touching the edge there, because I know that's the full length I need. And just drawing across, and that's my cut line. And by removing that material in the front, it'll sit right down. I've also needed to do that in the back. Find that edge. I gotta make a little adjustment. That's where we're at. And before making those marks, I just made sure this right side is nice and tight up against there. So I know that when I remove material on that side, this side will come down and meet the wall nicely all the way across. That was one-handed, by the way. And we're tight all the way around. Moving on to the nosings here. I'm doing a little notch, getting them to fit in there nicely. And basically just matching the top of that notch to the 3/4 inch thickness so that it ends up being flush at the top here. We'll give a nice finish. So I'm just putting everything in place, and then I'll pop them out and glue and nail them. But one trick about measuring in tight spaces like this, because you know when you kind of try to take the full length measurement side to side, you got to bend your tape at the end. So one trick that I was taught that I use all the time is basically the first step would be just measure 10 inches off that wall, make that mark right there, and then measure off the other wall, and you get a perfectly accurate. So if I cut that to 26 and a 1/16, I'll be dead on. And I can't tell you how often I measure things that way, and it just makes life easier. And then the next step would be bringing that cut piece over here, and it would be, pre-notched. And then I basically just mark there and mark there. And then I know that that's where the notch has to begin. And then I just get 3/4 inch height on each side. And I'm using a jigsaw to cut them. Real quick on these notches, the jigsaw turned out to be kind of a pain in the ass, so I'm doing it this way. I'm actually using this scrap plywood to mark this cut here so that I know that this overhang will perfectly cover the plywood shelf. This perpendicular cut, I'm just laying like this and bringing it down, and this is kind of a more advanced technique for some people, but it's perfectly safe as long as you just keep your hand firmly pressed against the back here, and then as you watch the blade near that line, you just tilt it forward, because the back you're never going to see. You just want that perfect point where the pencil line is to be where the front of the cut ends. Did that on both sides. And then same thing here, you can use the table saw because you're never going to see the back of this. And I'm just following that line there. I'll do it one hand. There you go. So the back looks a little silly, but it doesn't matter. Perfection. This is where we stand. All the nosings are done. They're just sitting in place. And basically all I'm gonna do, pop them up, put a bead of glue, brad nail across the front, and then I'll end up lifting the whole shelf up, put a little bead of glue across the cleats, and then brad nailing down from the top. But you're looking at what is essentially a finished product. And a nice functional linen closet.